Alright, so for some more SCP content, we're back for SCP Illustrated. The Gate Guardian versus SCP-682, which is everybody's human-hating but lovable crocodile beast thing. But it's great. And the Gate Guardian's the thing that might guard 001, right? This is the one with all the wings, and they can chop down nukes with its faster than light sword or some shit. It does something like that. I listened to the SCP thing once. It was a confusing description, but I was there for it. But yeah, we're for SCP Illustrated. It's a channel I've actually really enjoyed, and this is fairly new. Came out this summer, so let's check it out, man. All right, let's do it. Fight!
The doors to the shipping container were pulled open by the attending D-Class, and an enraged creature came bounding out. It instantly grabbed one of the men in its mouth and cleaved him in two, swallowing the upper half.
That makes sense.
Several armed men came forward and unleashed a barrage of heavy gunfire into the creature from behind. Bloody jaws turned towards the armed men, ready to slaughter them where they stood. But for now, the creature had more important things to do. It turned and quickly put the men behind it, sprinting away to freedom. He heard a voice in his head.
No, go kill him.
It was commanding him to leave. The strangeness of the situation struck him almost immediately, and so did something else. The ground split in two as the reptile was struck. One of the most powerful and mightiest entities the Foundation had ever encountered unleashed its fury on 682. Another blow descended on 682 before he had even hit the ground. 682 took a deep breath of scorched earth and his own flesh as he rolled onto his back. His entire being was charred and red raw. He pulled himself out of the crater to see an angelic being standing over him.
The snake slithers back to the garden.
That's deep.
Uriel.
That's a deep line.
He spat blood and burnt meat onto the ground.
You corrupted my lord's vision.
I simply suggested they eat the fruit.
After another blinding
That's
flash of
cool.
light, 682 was hurtling across the landscape once again, this time with a massive gash in his abdomen. His entrails followed,
gonna
not
fuck
too
you
far
up.
behind him. He groaned in his crater and began consuming the earth around him. Lost muscle and flesh began to regrow, armored plating began to cover his extremities, and he began to grow. He could feel his bones creaking and snapping, adjusting to his new form.
You command me to die after the curse your lord laid upon me?
682 stood tall and
Hell
stared
yeah.
down the angel.
What the fuck? He fucking
Everything about his new form was catered towards bringing death to this being.
What the fuck?
Uriel brought his sword up and stared back, waiting for the reptile's first move. With a monumental roar, 682 bounded towards Uriel. Just as 682 was upon him, Uriel swung his sword around and brought it swiftly into the side of 682's head. The receiving side of 682's skull shattered, sending a hailstorm of blood and bone fragments to the ground. The reptile quickly recovered and used the impact's momentum to swing his tail around and slam it into
finally hit
Uriel's
it.
side, the spikes going deep. Uriel brought the sword
bleeds.
swinging back, separating 682 from his tail in a flash. He followed up with a hard kick to the beast, sending it crashing backwards. Uriel glanced down at his wounds and gave 682 an acknowledging nod. The reptile roared and struck the ground, causing it to bubble and split between their feet. The faults ran deep and lava began to bubble up from between the cracks. 682 lowered himself to the floor, never taking his eyes off Uriel, and began absorbing the fire into his form. Uriel took a step back into a defensive position and readied
spat
himself for the
lava
next
at him.
strike. The beast
This
began
is
to
getting
convulse
absurd.
before expelling a mixture of magma and acid at the angel. Uriel brought his sword back and wrapped his many wings around his form. The mixture settled on them, but did not penetrate. 682 moved in to press his advantage as the angel's wings unfurled and showered the beast in its own cocktail of searing hot acid. 682 fell backwards, screaming in agony as his eyes melted in their sockets. Uriel brought the flaming sword crashing down on 682, splitting him from head to chest. A final cut was delivered and the beast's lower limbs were removed,
That's
leaving it to crawl on the
disgusting.
floor.
Oh my goodness.
682 didn't even try to get up.
Exactly where a snake should be, on its belly.
So kill me.
My lord has commanded you to suffer for all eternity.
Explains like the hate of humans.
Uriel raised his sword once more, holding the hilt high with the blade low, and let gravity pull it down into the beast's hide. 682 felt a brief sensation of scorching heat and agony before being reduced to a severed head. He could feel his armoured plating disappearing into his body, his remaining mass being redistributed to replace what was lost. A massive hand grabbed him before tossing him out of the garden. He coughed and wheezed as the impact sent dust and rocks into his airways. He heard the words remove in his head, and as his eyes returned, he saw several blurred humanoid figures in orange jumpsuits approaching him on the horizon.
What? He's gonna take his ass back.
And that concludes this cross encounter between SCP-682 and the Gate Guardian. Please leave.
They just sent him over there to get it beat up? Damn. Yeah, they just beat up 682. I was really rooting for this angsty reptile. This thing became a Wattpad writing very quickly. Let me tell you, that is not what I expected from that. Way more biblical than I was prepared for. You know, the twist of the serpent from the garden or whatever. That's not, that's not something that I don't want to say it's not something I ever took into consideration. Like, I've always considered that might be something, but, I don't know. They just beat him up. That's what I didn't like. It set the bar too high. If he's the serpent, he's got to lose, and he just got freaking destroyed. But I guess it is what it is. 682 can only go so far when you're up against a literal god in this type of literary. We need to find a different one. So he wins. It's all made up. All right. I want to see one where he wins. God damn it. Man, SCP Illustrated illustrations have gotten good. They've gotten freaking good. How awesome, dude. How awesome. We should find one of the Plague Doctor, man. I really want to watch another Plague Doctor one. So if you guys have any other SCP recommendations, let me know. This was a highly recommended one, so we started here. We did SCP-5000, which was like the last one that you guys really, really wanted us to watch. So if you guys have any other ones from SCP Illustrated that you guys want, more recent ones, that would be dope. So let me know. But yeah, I'll holler at you guys in the next one. It's a pretty good short one. Peace.